Hello everyone. Today we continue the saga of the examination for the temple lot trial of Joseph B. Noble. It is the cross-examination, and as you may remember, we left on Monday, March 21st, when Joseph, complaining of being ill, was permitted to leave and told to come back the next day. However, we resume the day after the next day, Wednesday, March 23rd, at 9:30 a.m. Cross-examination begins by Mr. Kelly. When you were excused the other day by the examiner, you promised that you would return the next morning, and you failed to do so. What excuse have you to offer for your failure to appear when you promised?
Well, I understood that I was excused to appear when I was called on, and as soon as I knew I was wanted, here I came.
That is the reason you give for not being here yesterday?
Yes, sir, and I hope it is a good one.
Mr. Noble, when did you say you became a member of this church?
It was in 32.
Whereabouts?
I've told you all about that before.
No, you did not tell me. You told that gentleman there, but you did not tell me.
Do you want to know where it was I joined the church?
Yes, sir.
Well, it was in Ohio.
Was it in Kirtland?
Yes, sir. Kirtland, Ohio.
Who baptized you?
Well, now, I will alter that a little. It was not in Kirtland either, for it was 200 miles east of that, in northern New York, in the northern part of the state of New York, near that hill Cumorah when I lived there.
Who baptized you?
Brigham Young.
In 1832?
Yes, sir.
When did you first go to Kirtland?
It was in 33, and I went there to see the prophet.
How long did you stay?
I stayed 9 days, for he was cutting up hay in the field, and I worked with him during that time, helping him cut his hay.
But I don't care anything about the hay.
Well, that is what I was doing.
After that, there's a rather long interlude where Mr. Kelly asks about the church raising money to buy land in Missouri, who was in charge of it, and etc., etc. So we're going to just skip down to line 234. Well, were you not in Independence?
No, sir.
You never were there at all?
No, sir. Never in my life.
Were you ever in Jackson County?
Jackson County, Missouri?
Yes, sir.
No, sir. I never was in the county, but when I was up through that section of country, I was close enough to see it. I went up on the hills along the river over in Clay County and looked over and saw it.
You have seen Jackson County, then?
Yes, sir. I saw it from an elevation in Clay County.
You were in Zion's camp in Clay County, were you not?
Yes, sir. I was with Zion's Scamps.
Was that what they were called?
Yes, sir. They were nicknamed that name.
Then you were with Zion's Scamps?
Yes, sir. That is what they said.
I do not call them that name. Why do you call them that? Do you think it is sharp and witty to term them that?
Well, they were pretty good fellows. Still, they were boys back then and were full of fun. Perhaps I had better take it back.
Well, now, do you say there was any scamps about it?
Well, I expect that there was some of them were scamps.
Well, when I call your attention to Zion's camp, do you call the occupants or the people that were there Zion's scamps?
No, sir. I just I said that because that was the name we went by amongst some people, but I don't think we deserved it at all. They were boys, a good many of them, and it was put that way just for fun.
Who put it that way in the first place?
Brigham Young, and he did it just for fun, I guess."
You heard him say that, did you? Counsel objects. Did you hear Brigham Young say that?
Yes, sir, I heard it."
You never heard Brigham Young say anything about the temple lot, though, did you? Counsel for the defense objects.
"Not much."
You say you did not hear him say anything about it.
"That I do not recollect of."
You remember, though, what he said about Zion's scamps, but you can't recollect if he ever said a thing about the temple lot.
"Well, I remember these nonsensical things, and I don't recollect these other things at all."
And then he questions him some more about what Brigham Young said or didn't say about the temple lot, and where he was in Clay County, in Ohio. We're going to jump to line 309. It gets good again. Starts questioning him about his marriage. Now, when you were married, was there any other minister present except the Presbyterian minister who married you?
"There was no other minister or preacher. He was sufficient."
Was that according to the law of the church?
"Was what?"
That marriage, was that according to the law of the church?
"That was out of the church, that was. I stepped over the boundary and took a wife that was out of the church, not in it."
You married a woman, then, that was out of the church?
"Yes, sir, and all her family was out of the church, but I got them all in."
You got all your wife's family into the church?
"I did."
Including your wife?
"Yes, sir."
Was it according to the laws of the church, then, that any minister could perform the ceremony? Counsel objects.
"Well, I was only on the threshold of the church at that time."
Answer the question.
"What is the question?"
Was it according to the laws of the church at that time that any minister could perform the marriage ceremony?
"I can't say. There was no law upon it at that time that I know anything of."
Line 318 is written in over here. Was there not a revelation on that particular subject?
"Oh, well, there was after that."
Was there not a revelation on that particular subject at that time?
I think there wasn't then. I think we got that afterwards."
Is there not a section in the Book of Doctrine and Covenants relating specifically to marriage, and stipulating how it may be performed, and who are competent to wed?
"Yes, sir, there was afterwards, but there was not at that time, for it was not published then."
Counsel objects. Was it not published in 1838?
"I can't tell you, but I know it was not published at that early time that I had that wedding I spoke of."
You had that wedding in 38?
"Yes, sir."
And do you say the Book of Doctrine and Covenants was not published in 1838?
Let me see the book. Tell me the date when it was published."
Hold on. Do you say it was not published in 1838?
"No, sir, I don't say it was not published. It might have been."
Well now, as a matter of fact, was it not published in 1835? Counsel for the defendants objects. Answer the question.
"Please put the question again."
Was not the Book of Doctrine and Covenants first published in 1835?
"I could not say."
Do you say it was not first published then?
"No, sir."
You have read it, haven't you?
Yes, sir, I presume I have. I've read a good many things, but I can't remember all of them, or hardly any of them, and the fact is I've lost my memory of these things."
Look at that book. Handing witness the 1835 edition of the Book of Doctrine and Covenants marked Exhibit E. And tell me what that is.
"I can't read that."
Well, you can read the title page. Is that the Book of Doctrine and Covenants? The book handed the witness is one of the edition of 1835 in all respects, the same as the one marked Exhibit E, with the exception of the title page, which is in the book handed the witness, but which is missing in Exhibit E.
"I guess so."
What is the date of that book? What is the date of its publication? You will see it down at the bottom of the book, of the page.
What is that? Is it 35? I think it is 35. By Ginger, it is as much as I can do to see it, but I think it is 35.
Yes, sir, it is 1835, and that is the date of its publication.
Yes, sir, I guess that is right, but I would have to put on my glasses to get it right.
It is 1835, is it not? I would like to have you be definite on that point.
Yes, sir, it looks like it. I have no doubt but that is what it is.
You were married after that, were you not?
Oh, yes.
You were married in 1838.
I was. The covenants were in manuscript when I went up there in 1838, I thought. But it looks there as if it had been published in 1835. I can't understand that.
You saw the manuscript in the hands of the prophet in 1838, do you say?
Well, let me see now. No, I was mistaken about that, for, by golly, it was in 34 when I first went up there. I'm getting terribly astray, for I went up there to Kirtland and saw the prophet in 33. Is that not right? Is it not so written?
Yes, sir, I think that is the way it is written.
Yes, sir, that is right, and that is the time he showed me the manuscript. This was printed in 35. Yes, that is right, for it was in 34 that I saw the manuscript. Well, now, it's not that strange, for I had it in my noggin that it was in 38. Well, man is twice a child. It is astonishing, for once, when I was in my prime, I could throw down the best of you that are here, and now I'm like a child again. It is astonishing.
Well, that is not representative to the question, Mr. Noble.
Well, I am an old man, and I'm just bragging a little, as an old man has a right to do, you know.
Well, it was not proper for any minister, whether he belonged to the church you belong to perform the ceremony, or justice of the peace, or minister under the laws of the state where the marriage occurred. Counsel for the defendant's objects.
Well, there was lots of handwriting.
Answer the question. It was according to the law of doctrine and covenants that any minister could marry you and perform the marriage ceremony.
Yes, sir, of course it was.
You could get anyone to do that.
Yes, sir, you could call on whom you liked.
That was the doctrine of the church, wasn't it?
No, sir.
It was not?
No, sir.
Well, what was it?
There was no doctrine about it. It was simply the practice. We were not after a doctrine at such a time as that.
You were after the women, weren't you?
Yes, sir, we were after women, and we got them, too. That is more than some men can do nowadays. I was after a wife, and I know I got her.
You got your first wife in 1838?
Yes, sir.
You commenced hunting a wife in 1838 now. When did you quit hunting them?
Quit?
Yes, sir, that is what I asked you.
I don't know as I have quit yet.
Oh, goodness. Mr. Noble. Okay, they argue for a little bit about whether other ministers are allowed to marry LDS, so we're going to jump down to line 379. Where he starts asking about what happened in Nauvoo. Well, did you ever live in Nauvoo?
I did.
Well, when did you go to Nauvoo to live?
Well, it is my best recollection that we went there about 1841.
That is when you first heard the doctrine of polygamy talked. When you went over to Nauvoo to live in 1841 was the first time you heard that doctrine talked, was it not?
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
Do you mean to say that you do not know about it?
I don't know when I first heard of it.
Well, was it not that time?
I couldn't tell you the time when I heard it first, for I have heard so much about it first and last that I really couldn't say when I first heard of it.
You don't know whether it was before that or not?
I couldn't say.
Well, it was sometime in 41, wasn't it, that you first heard it talked of, when you went over to Nauvoo to live?
Yes, sir, I heard of it then, I guess. But I had heard of it before that time, and afterwards too, I guess.
Well, where and when did you hear of it before?
I heard of it in 40, I guess.
In 1840 you say you heard of it?
Yes, sir.
Where did you hear of it then?
Let me see. Where was I then? I was over there in Montrose, I guess.
You were in Montrose?
Yes, sir.
How long did you remain there after you heard it?
In Montrose, do you mean?
Yes, sir.
Let me see. I remained there, I guess. Well, I don't know exactly how long it was.
Well, now, you are positive, are you, that you heard of it in 1840, when you lived in Montrose?
My best recollection is that it was about that time, but I heard more of it afterwards.
Now, did you hear anything about the Church denouncing such a practice at any time between 1840 and 1844? At any time between these dates? Counsel for the defendant objects.
I don't recollect much about that.
Well, do you recollect anything about it?
Not the date, of course. There was rumors and talks. I could not begin to say or tell all that I heard, for there was so much talk going on there.
Don't you know that the Church, as a church, did denounce it between 1840 and 1844? Counsel for the defendant objects. Answer the question. Don't you know that too?
How's that? Know what?
I asked if you did not know that the Church did denounce the practice of polygamy, or the plural secret wife system, between 1840 and 1844. Answer the question. Are you going to answer the question?
Be patient, I am trying to call up these things. It was in 44 that the prophet died. That was the time of the death of the prophet, I believe. Oh, my head feels so bad, and I feel bad all over, too.
It feels worse than it did when you were being examined by Hall, don't it?
Well, I don't know.
Don't you know that the Church did denounce it and publish it, and by resolution it was put in the Book of Doctrine and Covenants? Don't you know that? Counsel for the defendants objects.
Well, the date is what bothers me, you see. I can't remember dates at all anymore.
Well, you know it was denounced by the Church at some time, don't you? By Mr. Cabell. The witness has stated emphatically that he does not know, and I object to this kind of cross-examination, so-called, on the ground that it is uncalled for and a deliberate attempt to badger the witness into saying something that he does not know of his own knowledge. The Church did denounce the system of polygamy, or its practice, did it not, at some time, and that too before the death of Joseph Smith. Counsel objects.
The trouble with me is that I can't date it.
You can't think of it?
I can't satisfy myself on that point as to the date.
Well, I am not asking you anything on the date. I am not asking you anything on the question of date. I asked you if the Church did not officially denounce the practice of polygamy and the doctrine at some time before Joseph Smith was killed or died, without reference to any particular date.
Well, that is the point I can't satisfy myself on.
Now, to refresh your recollection, I will read a paragraph here. It is the 4th paragraph of section 101 on marriage, in Exhibit E, on page 251 in this same Book of Doctrine and Covenants that you were looking at and identified. All legal contracts of marriage made before a person is baptized into this church shall be held sacred and fulfilled. Did you ever hear that before?
Yes, sir. And behind, too.
Who read it to you behind?
Well, you know what I mean. I've heard the sound of it before.
I will go on and read the balance of the paragraph. Inasmuch as this Church of Christ has been reproached with the crime of fornication and polygamy, we declare that we believe that one man should have but one wife, and one woman but one husband, except in case of death, when either is at liberty to marry again. Was that not the doctrine of the Church in 1840?
Well, I don't know. I can't give the dates, for that is what bothers me now.
Well, you knew that that was the doctrine of the Church up to the time that Joseph Smith died, didn't you?
You mean it was practiced in the church?
I mean this was the doctrine of the Church.
What?
What is contained in this book here that I have been reading out of? That contained the doctrine of the Church up to the time of Joseph Smith's death, did it not? Counsel for the defendants objects. Answer the question.
Well, I said I don't know.
You don't know, you say, and yet you were an elder in the Church and an high priest.
I was an elder, I guess, but I don't know about the high priest part of it.
Well, were you not also an high priest?
It is like enough.
And a bishop?
Yes, sir, and a bishop.
In the 5th Ward in Nauvoo?
Yes, sir. I see you've got it right.
Well, now, do you say this was not the law of the Church at the time that Joseph Smith died? Counsel for the defendants objects. Well, I will modify that question. Do you say this was not the law of the Church, that you did know this was the law of the Church at the time that Joseph Smith died?
Yes, sir. I don't know anything about it.
Then you say you did not know this was the law of the Church at the time that Joseph Smith died, when you were a bishop and a high priest and elder, and sent there to teach the people what the law of the Church was. Counsel objects.
I was not much of a scholar, and I guess I did not go to the book.
Then you did not teach the law of the Church out of the book?
I guess not.
Why not?
I guess I had enough without.
You had enough to teach without going to the book for your law? You know enough without that?
Yes, sir. I suppose I do.
Well, what did you teach? This law or some other law?
I taught every man to mind his own business devilish close.
That is what you taught to every man?
Yes, sir, and that was good teaching, too, I think.
You say you taught every man to mind his business devilish close?
Yes, sir.
You are an elder in the Church now?
Yeah, I am, I guess.
And you use language like that? An elder in the Church here can use language like that?
Sometimes there is occasion to use it, I think.
Did you teach, publicly or privately there at Nauvoo, that a man could have more wives than one?
I did not.
You did not teach that, either publicly or privately?
No, sir, I did not teach anything of the kind.
Why not?
Because, as I said, it was not taught publicly. It was a private matter.
Then you did not teach it?
No, sir. I guess not. Not much. I did not teach it. I don't think I did, but I can't remember. My head hurts me when I try to think of these things that I can't remember.
When I ask you these things, it makes your head hurt.
Sir?
It did not make your head hurt a little bit when Hall asked you these questions.
It did some.
It made it hurt some, but not as bad as when I ask you the same question.
You ask so many foolish, nonsensical questions, it would make anybody's head hurt to answer them, I think.
That is part 2 of Joseph Noble's examination for the Temple Lot case. Join us next time as we get more into the polygamy aspects. See you in part 3.